Hi, I'm Ed, coming to you from my YouTube channel, edXattic. I'm going to be talking to you about bicycle maintenance, and I'm going to be specifically dealing with what to do and how often to do it, rather than how to do it, because I believe there are enough really good quality YouTube videos on how to do it, and I don't want to repeat that kind of information here. My background in bicycle maintenance comes from logging over 20,000 miles on my Surly long haul trucker since I bought it in 2012. And I know that I've got 20,000 miles on it because I've logged every mile that I've ridden on it since I bought the bike. And I log my rides either using my phone app, my bicycle computer, and sometimes I'll use both. We're going to be talking about touring and hybrid bikes. And I define that class of bike as by the tire width, which generally is 35 millimeters, give or take a couple of millimeters. We're going to be talking about tires, cassette and chain, and I grouped the cassette and chain together because they're very closely related. And we're going to be talking about hubs and the bottom bracket. And I'm going to have separate episodes for the tires. We'll deal with the tires during this episode. The next episode we'll deal with the chain and cassette and the hubs, and then finally the third episode we'll deal with the bottom bracket. Along the way we'll cover some other things like cables, brake pads, and believe it or not, bar tape. And I have an interesting story about bar tape and something that happened to me with my handlebars. Let's start with tires. When you bought your bike, you probably had a set of decent stock tires. My bike came with Continentals, and I was pretty happy with those, but when I wore them out, I switched to Panasonics. And I really didn't have much of a scientific reason for switching to Panasonics. I saw them in the store, I kind of liked the aggressive tread pattern, and the price was right. So I switched to Panasonics. Now during that entire time period with the Continentals and the Panasonics, I had my share of flats. And I got the feeling that flats were just a way of life, and I think many of us feel that way. But I changed my mind after I switched to a more premium tire. The other incident that I had that was problematic was that with the Panasonics, I was on a supported tour, and my tire developed a knot in the sidewall, a bubble in the sidewall. Fortunately, it was a supported tour, and I was 15 or 20 miles away from a rest stop. When I got to the rest stop, I visited the tour bicycle mechanic and purchased a new tire. But imagine if you're riding alone, if you're not supported, if you don't have a bike mechanic handy, you're kind of stuck. So a more premium tire is kind of worth the money for better reliability. So I switched to Schwalbe Marathon Supremes. There are lots of premium tire brands available, and you can do your own research. For me, my experience is with the Schwalbe Marathon Supremes. And I've gone 8,000 miles on the Schwalbes now with no flat. And I attribute that to a couple of things. First of all, I think that premium tires are made with better compounds that are more flat resistant, more puncture resistant. And secondly, I think the tire structure, the mechanical design of a premium tire is better and more puncture resistant. So I get 4,000 miles on a pair of Schwalbe tires, and at 4,000 miles I know that there's a little bit of tread left, and I could probably squeeze another 1,000 miles out of a pair of tires. But I don't do that because I feel that I might be giving up some reliability, and I might be giving up some wet pavement traction. And so I just assume, at 4,000 miles, I just assume replace the tires with a new pair. And once you have the tires on your bike, about the only thing you need to worry about is tire pressure. And my baseline is 1 or 2 weeks between topping off my tire pressure. And that's going to depend on your own personal experience, and it's going to be based on the combination of tire and tube, your particular tire and tube. So you may be able to get by with more or less of a time period between topping off the tire pressure. As far as the tire pressure is concerned, what I recommend is running your tires at 25% less than the maximum. So, for example, if your maximum tire pressure is 80 psi, then I would run the tires at 60 psi. Now, the reason for doing that is that you get a slightly better ride with the lower tire pressure. On the other hand, if you're riding on a self-supported tour and you're carrying a load on your bike, 40 to 55 pounds, something of that nature, then you want to use the maximum tire pressure. Now, the reason for that is that every time your tire meets the road, the sidewall flexes. And the amount of sidewall flex is based on the tire pressure. The higher tire pressure minimizes sidewall flex. And so it minimizes the chance of a sidewall failure from overflexing. So now let's turn to the things that I carry with me for tire repair when I ride. Whether I'm on a tour or a training ride, I always carry 4 tire repair items with me. I carry a spare tube, I carry 2 tire pries, I carry a patch kit, and I carry a pump. The tube is always a default repair for me because I really hate using a patch. And I carry the patch kit as a hedge against having a second flat. Now, I did have one thing happen to me with a patch kit with a rented bike. I was on a tour in Memphis about 10 or 15 miles away from the bike shop where I rented the bike. And I got a flat tire. And I had my tire pries, my patch kit, and my pump with me. So far, so good. Pulled the tube out of the tire, found the hole in the tube, and then when I went to squeeze the rubber cement, nothing but air came out of the tube. So one thing that I could recommend is when you buy a patch kit, just squeeze the tube to make sure there's something besides air in it. Now, the resolution for that problem for me on that tour was that I was broken down right near a driveway, and just when I had the problem with the rubber cement, 2 guys drove up the driveway in a pickup truck and parked nearby a barn. So I walked to the barn and borrowed some rubber cement. The last thing I want to talk about on tires is pumps. When I'm at home, I use a floor pump. And I like the floor pump because it has a built-in pressure gauge, which I think is more reliable and easier to use than a separate pressure gauge. When I'm on the road, I like the Topeak Road Morph. And there are 2 reasons why I like it. First of all, it comes with a bracket that makes it easy to mount to the frame out of the way. And the other thing is that it has a fairly accurate pressure gauge built into it. So there are probably a few other pumps like this on the market, but I like the Topeak Road Morph. It's worked out really well for me. So that's it for tires. Next video, we'll talk about cassettes and chains and hubs. Thanks for watching.